On that fateful day, a wyvern soared freely, circling high in the distant sky. Okay. That spectacular sight was the singular motivation for his choice: to resign his post as the Dekulan Great Magic family's chief troubleshooter. Now, only the current troubleshooter remained in the family's service. The manager accused the number one troubleshooter of concealing incredible talents far beyond his rank. Refusing to be questioned, the troubleshooter took the offensive and demanded to know about the grimoire. Confirming its existence, the manager revealed that mobilizing his full force for just one person was unnecessary. It was the Dekulan family's pursuit of the grimoire that made them swarm like rabid dogs. The manager then asked for the grimoire's location, to which the troubleshooter claimed complete ignorance. He reasoned that if the greedy Dekulan clan had understood its power, they wouldn't have locked it away, but chasing him this far confirmed its immense worth. The manager commanded him to surrender the grimoire immediately, offering to plead for leniency and suggesting he could return, not as a troubleshooter, but as a devoted hound. Questioning the manager's authority to make such a grand offer, the troubleshooter prepared for the inevitable, provoking the manager until he finally embraced his violent nature. This confrontation was perceived as extremely dangerous. The manager complimented his keen survival instincts, and introduced himself as Paheren von Dekulan, noting the troubleshooter's vicious energy. He was the actual head of the Dekulan magic family of the Eastern continent, confirming his status as the strongest figure in the clan. Paheren politely requested the grimoire, suggesting they could converse later, as the troubleshooter admitted this was his first personal encounter with the family head after decades of service. This was the leader of the Eastern continent's foremost magic family, Dekulan. The head was reputed to be the strongest mage in their history. The troubleshooter wondered just what kind of man he truly was. He admitted that the family head's presence was beginning to genuinely irritate him. He called the attempt to snatch his hard-earned spoils shameless and laughed dismissively. He instantly regretted not taking the chance to consume the wyvern, as the family head's aura was no joke and the most overwhelmingly powerful mage he had ever encountered. Paheren acknowledged that killing him and taking the grimoire would be simpler, but proposed they settle the matter quickly. He was offered a return to Dekulan's service, promising that all his past crimes would be forgiven upon handing over the grimoire. The family head praised his remarkable talent, regretting not recognizing his abilities sooner after witnessing his fighting prowess. He marveled at how a mere slum rat, trained only in the simple techniques of troubleshooters, had reached such a high level. Paheren offered him a chance to stand by his side, making Dekulan greater and having his name echo throughout history. The offer was a command: return to Dekulan. He seemingly accepted, noting that the grimoire's return was, of course, a prerequisite, but then added one crucial condition. He demanded Paheren's seat as family head before any further negotiations could take place. The troubleshooter then mocked him, asking if he had truly been watching his previous fight. He then questioned how many lives were lost in the resulting explosion. Paheren warned him that continuing this defiance meant certain death. The troubleshooter agreed that the warning was a genuine possibility. He forcefully confirmed the grim assessment. Paheren was now forced to measure the difference in their power for himself and declared he would first humble the insolent troubleshooter. The family head's sudden move was absolutely frantic. He witnessed the sheer power unleashed by the Dekulan family head. There were no weaknesses to exploit, and he realized he was overthinking the situation. The family head referenced the earlier boast about measuring the gap in power, noting that some things were obvious without a test. The chasm separating their abilities was too vast to measure. Paheren granted him a meager, narrow chance to survive. The troubleshooter sarcastically asked what would happen if he bowed down now and accepted a return to the Dekulan's service. He immediately rejected the thought. He was utterly disgusted by the idea of once again living on scraps. He vehemently refused to become their mutt again, claiming that a fancy kennel and a new collar could never change his enslaved reality. Paheren simply called him a fool. He then told the troubleshooter to witness his overwhelming power. The troubleshooter understood the family head's true nature. He recalled the day he looked up and saw the wyvern flying so freely in the sky. That feeling of looking up was the key, as Paheren noted with surprise that he had managed to endure the attack. Paheren asked if he now finally understood the terrifying difference in their strength and proposed they discuss the unfinished business again. The troubleshooter asked if he was being offered his old job back, but Paheren corrected him, offering the title of a vassal family's head instead. The troubleshooter was shocked by the offer to lead a sworn vassal house of the Dekulan family, which rivaled imperial authority. He realized this was the family head's true objective, noting that the grimoire was a secondary concern to securing him. The family head was pleased that the troubleshooter was actually considering the offer. He promised that accepting this new role would erase all his past sins, leaving only glory awaiting him with the Dekulan clan. The troubleshooter unexpectedly ignited the grimoire, stating he was taking it as his spoils and offering the family head the ashes if he still wanted it. Ignoring the family head's threats, he revealed that troubleshooters didn't care about simple money, but this grimoire was priceless. He then asked if the family head was aware of the troubleshooter allies evolved by the young Dekulan master using forbidden magic, confirming that the young master had eaten his comrades. Paheren dismissed the idea of simple revenge, claiming that even the mutts knew their lives were cheap, but the troubleshooter admitted he just wanted to fulfill their damn dreams. Fulfilling those dreams required money, and also the simple refusal to crawl back to the kennel after he had retired. Paheren listened to his final words and unleashed the Dekulan's azure flame, an eternal, unquenchable fire. He told the troubleshooter to drown in his regret, but the man refused, preferring death to being Dekulan's dog again, realizing death might not be so bad after all. He embraced his impending death, feeling a sense of liberation he hadn't felt in a long time. He lamented that he couldn't completely break free, but vowed to seize true freedom and vengeance if he was ever reborn. The mysterious text on the grimoire was simply the word redeemed. He was shocked to find that everything around him had frozen in time. He questioned what the grimoire had actually done. He was utterly confused by the strange phenomena occurring. Wondering why he wasn't burnt to death, he felt a strange sense of familiarity and questioned his location. The powerful feeling was one of returning to the past, as he recognized the area as a familiar place from his youth. He realized he was in the black-white zone, the wretched place where he had barely survived every day before becoming a troubleshooter. He struggled to accept the impossible thought that he had somehow traveled back in time. He exclaimed in shock at the unbelievable situation. He confirmed that the person before him was definitely himself, but from a much younger time. At least the mysterious mark remained, proving his time travel experience was real. He concluded the grimoire must have caused this phenomenon, even questioning if such a feat was within its power. He reflected that the simple fact of the Dekulan family head personally coming for it proved its immense importance, but the lack of information was frustrating. He decided the time travel was a good thing, as the vividness and the real stench confirmed he was truly alive, but wondered if that was his only purpose. He woke up, full of energy, feeling that in this new setup, he was destined to achieve great things. He paused to consider what hitting it big truly meant, recalling a dream he once had. He confirmed he had a dream, one shared by his late comrades, and it was the very reason he chose to retire. He corrected himself, addressing his comrade Astor, reminding him they were mere vagrants in the black-white zone, lacking clothes, food, and education. They agreed that not having enough to eat was the worst, but he questioned why their lives ended up in the gutter if food was the only issue. The true reason their lives were considered trash was not food. He told the younger boy to just talk without stressing himself. He admitted that not being educated was the most painful, believing that proper training would have prevented them from being caught and enslaved by the nobles. The younger boy interjected, recalling his desire to build a library. He refined the idea, wishing for a place where anyone could freely read, regardless of social status, but then proposed to go one step further. He wanted to build a tower filled with every book imaginable, simply because he liked tall structures. The Dekulan family's secret manual had to be displayed at the entrance so that even the lowliest people could carry a copy around. The cover would feature the Dekulan crest, and the book would contain the techniques they valued more than life itself. He acknowledged the challenge of obtaining the techniques but passed the problem to his future self, knowing their discovery would certainly draw the Dekulan clan's attention. That attention was precisely what he wanted, but he was interrupted by an unexpected ambush. His attacker was furious that he had left his post and demanded to know the identity of this aggressive person. He noted his extensive combat experience as a troubleshooter and was surprised when his attacker blocked his strikes. He promised to repay the 7 hits he received with 10 times the force. The attacker was shocked when the unexpected blow caused a loud crack, questioning if something had broken. The attacker was in agony, furiously asking why the youngest would dare strike his older young. The pain in his body was immense, but the betrayal in his heart hurt even more. The troubleshooter saw a momentary chance and seized the opportunity. The attacker demanded to know where the brat was going, but the troubleshooter claimed it was a tactical retreat after memorizing the attacker's face. He vowed to keep the memory of the 57 hits he received in his heart, reminding himself that he was a seasoned troubleshooter who didn't know how to give up. The situation was starting to become dire. He chastised himself, knowing he was not just a pen pusher, and determined that spraining his wrist from a simple punch was completely pathetic. He realized the tower could wait, and his body desperately needed to be fixed first, then asked the young boy if he was hungry. The young boy asked if he knew him, and the troubleshooter confirmed he did not. He observed that the young boy's clothing, though ragged, was expensively made, suggesting he was a noble's kid who had fled a power struggle. He saw the boy as a walking time bomb and introduced himself as Damien, then asked the boy's name, feeling like he was learning dangerous information. The boy asked if he was slow, stating he didn't have a mother, prompting an apology from the troubleshooter. The boy countered, claiming he had no father either, so he won, then urged the troubleshooter to leave before the ticking time bomb could cause more trouble. The young boy refused to leave, stating he would come with the troubleshooter, who briefly considered hitting him but ultimately told him to get lost. The boy asked if the wound hurt and offered to heal it. The touch felt like an incredible healing hand, but the troubleshooter recognized it as much more. It was the light of healing, a secret technique from the fallen Blando noble house, which had been ruined by the Dekulan family. His troubleshooter instincts screamed that he had just stumbled into something incredibly nasty and dangerous. He wondered why a Blando child was in the black-white zone since their family should still be quite powerful at this point in time. The boy asked if he was being called. He cursed, remembering a person of Blando bloodline with mismatched eye colors. This person was known only as the Monster of Blando. The monster was Damien von Blando, a madman who was practically immortal. The young boy was distracted by 2 ants, laughing as he began counting them. He recalled being sent on a mission to Blando territory by the Dekulan clan before his time regression, questioning why they were called in for a family matter. He had heard rumors of a monster in the Blando family, responsible for dozens of deaths, and wondered if it was an ogre. He then saw the truth for himself. It was a human brutally tearing apart another human. The monster of Blando was endlessly casting the family's healing magic, fighting with an insane, laughing madness. He was shocked that the person before him was the direct heir of the Blando family, the Lord's only son, wandering in this shabby place, but was interrupted when the boy mentioned food. The boy insisted they should eat, sharing his mother's belief that good food was essential for health. The troubleshooter was annoyed by the boy's manner of speaking and asked if he had any money. The boy declared they were friends now, which the troubleshooter found utterly random. The boy proclaimed that their new friendship meant they must share what they had. The troubleshooter asked what the boy had, to which the boy simply replied, "A friend." After enjoying a meal, a wash made them feel refreshed. He asked what the boy was doing, surprised to learn there was a dwelling above the eating spot, having always slept outside. He then remembered that he also didn't have a father. The boy denied this, causing a strange argument about who had no father, and then the troubleshooter asked about the boy's mother. The boy simply stated she wasn't present, leading the troubleshooter to realize this meant, in the boy's mind, she didn't exist. He asked how long the boy had been alone, and the boy replied that he had slept 10 times since running away from home. The boy clarified that he often took naps, sometimes sleeping twice a day, leading to the count of 10 sleeps. This suggested the boy had been away for only 3 or 4 days, but the boy complained he hadn't napped recently because the ground was uncomfortable. Yep. Total lunatic from the roots up. He considered that by acting as a caretaker to the young noble while he was stranded in the black-white zone, he could potentially form a valuable bond with the Blando family. First, he needed to address the 57-layer grudge embedded in his chest from the earlier beating. He told Damien he was going to perform a dangerous breathing exercise and warned him not to interfere. He acknowledged the limits of the standard magic formulas he used in his past life as a troubleshooter. So I infiltrated several noble families and stole their. I nearly got killed more than once doing that. The secret arts he mastered included the knight's reinforced body. They were a mix of spirit arts, summoning, and alchemy techniques. Despite those, the overwhelming power he faced right before his death was nothing short of an absolute catastrophe. This time, he vowed to learn the true Dekulan foundational art, Heaven's Source Art. This art was the root of all Dekulan techniques and could harmonize all elemental mana, a technique he had memorized for research purposes. He began to activate the breathing technique. The sensation was intense, like magma flowing inside his body. He struggled to maintain control, forcing the Heaven's Source Art to circulate, only to discover the presence of impurities. This impurity was a secret arcane power. It was said to be used only by the elite mages of noble families on their direct bloodlines. The technique, known as the mana shower, forced the impurities out of his circuits by burning them away. He wondered how much time had passed since he began. More importantly, he noted that his circuits were now clean and his mana purified, perhaps even beyond the level of his past life. Despite this increase in power, defeating Dekulan still seemed overwhelmingly difficult. He thought that even 100 attempts might not be enough to achieve victory. However, his odds had clearly improved now. As a troubleshooter, he was a man who never gave up, even when the chances were near zero. He observed that the boy's distinctive platinum blonde hair was now hidden beneath a new, dull ash-gray color, and his new clothes would prevent recognition by the Blando family. He then asked his young friend what their final move would be. He announced their intention was to engage in physical violence. He awoke from his refreshing nap, noting the beautiful weather. He was immediately recognized by the youngest of his attackers. The attacker demanded to know where he had been and why he looked so filthy, asking if he had bathed in sewer runoff. Another attacker noticed the young boy, assuming he was carrying money. The troubleshooter confirmed he was in the right place and that the memory of their faces was all the proof he needed. He announced the fight would begin with 123 retaliatory strikes. The others were shocked by the sudden, violent turn of events. Everyone demanded to know who had barged in, recognizing the troubleshooter as the youngest attacker. He recognized all the familiar faces and prepared himself for a scary bunch, wondering how far he would be able to go today. The young boy was excited, asking if they were playing together. Whoa! They were amazed as the troubleshooter rapidly threw punches with his fists wrapped in magical energy. He instructed Damien to shout, "That's freaking awesome," in moments like this. The young boy enthusiastically repeated the phrase. The boy asked if the pain was severe and offered to use his healing magic. The victim thanked the boy, questioning the total number of hits he received. Phew! The victim was in agony, admitting he had lost count of the strikes. The young boy offered a healing touch to his friend, who begged him to stop the painful process. The troubleshooter informed the victim he was getting 20 more hits, as the boy continued his healing, causing the victim to scream. The victim admitted he couldn't count past 2 digits and fearfully complied with the demand. The troubleshooter praised his spirit and promised to play again another time. The victim was proud that he had successfully delivered over 2,000 hits in total, an impressive feat even for a seasoned troubleshooter. The victim nervously asked if they could leave now, confirming they had taken enough hits. He then awkwardly admitted that this place was actually their house, causing the troubleshooter to realize his error. The troubleshooter dismissed the problem, causing the victim to hastily correct himself, confirming that they were the ones who would be leaving. He realized this wasn't just revenge, it was becoming a genuine problem. Beyond the immediate area, he sensed an individual approaching. The person was fast but stealthy, possessing the distinct presence of a troubleshooter. He correctly guessed they were pursuers and greeted them quietly. He wondered how he had been discovered despite his carefulness, realizing the Blando family had tracked him down sooner than expected. He acknowledged that with his current low mana levels, he could neither cast spells nor fight physically, a bad situation, but reminded himself of his resourcefulness. As a troubleshooter, he never had abundant magic, constantly facing such situations, and decided to gather all his remaining mana and compress it further. The resulting mana bullet would have to suffice. He focused his mind on the single goal, change. He kneeled down. The pursuer was shocked to see the young master and revealed himself as Alfred. The butler asked how long they had been searching and expressed his profound worry over the young master's living conditions. The young master struggled to break free, but Alfred declared he would hold him until he returned to the family, even if he had to be killed first. The young master refused to go back, causing the troubleshooter to realize this was simply a case of running away from home. Alfred apologized for the scene and introduced himself as the butler of the Blando family, then acknowledged the troubleshooter as the young master's master. Noticing the young master's fondness for him, Alfred extended an invitation to the troubleshooter to accompany them back to their household. He noted the irony of a noble house, which typically shunned the lowborn, inviting him, but welcomed the potential connections with Blando. The Blando family controlled access to the city of Hazen, home to the prestigious Zenion Academy and its unparalleled training. Since he planned to build the ultimate library, a visit wouldn't hurt, and he formally accepted the honor of the invitation. He saw this as a slight deviation from his path to building the library, but believed it would ultimately lead to a good outcome. He then wondered if the Blando family's meals would be better than what he'd been eating. Alfred announced their arrival at House Blando. The troubleshooter noted this was his first official visit to a noble house. He observed the grand Blando manor. They were asked to rest comfortably since it was late, and Alfred handed over duties to another servant, Lancey. Lancey told the young master to come along, causing the boy to become distressed. The young master apologized to Lancey as he was dragged away. Enter. The madam of the house asked about Damien's location, and a servant confirmed he was being retrieved from the 7th Black-White Zone. The madam was shocked by the mention of the 7th Black-White Zone. She frantically asked if Damien was unharmed, threatening anyone who had hurt a single hair on her son's head. Alfred urged the madam to calm down and listen, acknowledging her concern. The madam expressed her relief, and Alfred agreed, noting that anyone who had harmed the young boy was lucky. He questioned who could withstand the wrath of the woman once known as the Blood Witch. Considering her fury regarding her son, the incident ending this way was fortunate, and Alfred thanked the servant for his hard work. The servant humbly stated it was his duty, but mentioned an unusual detail. The unusual thing was the young friend Astor, who had detected the servant's presence and prepared countermeasures. When they met, Astor was holding a compressed mana bullet. Alfred acknowledged the remarkable talent of a Black-White Zone urchin and presented his request to the madam. He then asked the madam for a favor regarding the boy. Alfred proposed that Astor become his successor. He noted Astor's surprise, claiming he wouldn't refuse the wealth and honor that came with being a noble house's butler. Astor cursed under his breath, causing Alfred to question what he said. Alfred wondered if he had misheard the word. Alfred repeated his confusion, asking Astor what the curse meant. Astor politely thanked him but preferred his current situation, causing Alfred to finally realize his own misconception. Alfred assumed the orphan black-white zone boy's talent made him arrogant, relating the cockiness to his own experience of being born into an ordinary family. Alfred warned the boy that the world was vast and not as small as he imagined. He suggested the boy was currently overconfident, thinking he could conquer the world, and advised him to hold back. He compared Astor to a ravine-born goblin, completely unaware of the dangers outside his limited world. Astor scoffed, claiming he would have been a wyvern by now had he been left alone. Alfred dramatically declared that he would personally enlighten the boy about the world. He intended to show the boy just how vast and truly terrifying the world was. The other trainees greeted the head butler respectfully. Alfred asked Astor to observe the other trainees, suggesting he could sense the impressive talents of the Blando family. Astor conceded that their refined aura was indeed impressive for teenagers. However, he noted their eyes showed a lack of experience, yet he admitted he could sense something unusual, prompting Alfred to ask if he would accept the offer. Alfred promised he would shine brighter than anyone as his successor, but Astor refused to shine, causing the head butler to question his refusal. A trainee named Winster suggested that if Astor had truly sensed their power, he wouldn't have refused the offer. Winster proposed that since Astor declined, he hadn't perceived enough yet and requested a chance to give him that experience. Alfred questioned if the encounter would even count as a spar, noting it would only be a small taste of reality. He found the trainee's arrogance noteworthy and conceded it wasn't a bad idea. Alfred asked Astor what he thought of a quick spar, but the troubleshooter had already figured out the purpose of the challenge. They saw him as a lucky stray mutt who had wandered in, and he asked if he could choose his opponents. Astor chose 5 of the trainees, causing an uproar. He challenged them to take him on all at once, and if they were scared, they should just die. Alfred was thrilled by the boy's brazenness, calling him a worthy potential successor. Alfred asked if he would take responsibility for the insults to the Blando name, to which Astor agreed. Alfred accepted, setting a 1-minute limit for the spar, promising a gift if he lasted that long, or accountability if he failed. Astor recognized the accountability meant becoming the next butler, realizing the old man was trying to leash him, and accepted the challenge. The instructor questioned if the stakes were too high for the head butler. Alfred argued that breaking the boy's stubbornness was the only way for him to grow, while the instructor worried about the consequences of injuring the young lord's guest. The young lord noticed his friend was in grave danger and begged the head butler to stop the fight, causing the instructor to remind him of the madam's displeasure if he interfered. The young lord was forced to order the instructor to proceed with the spar, who then claimed he had done his best to intervene. The young lord reluctantly backed off, telling his friend he would return and not to interfere. Astor explained the rules for the turn-based duel, finding the term annihilation battle more accurate. The annihilation format continued until one side surrendered, though the instructor could stop the match at his discretion. The instructor called Astor a damned stray mutt, angered by the favor shown to him, and vowed to utterly crush him. The match began. Looks like it should be the one giving lesson. First lesson: small peppers are the spiciest. The instructor was surprised to see a mana bullet, deeming it basic, mana-inefficient combat magic. Astor imparted his second lesson: never judge people carelessly. The mana bullet exploded with a boom, and Astor declared that the world was both vast and bitter. He promised to teach them these harsh lessons and told them to study them well. They accused him of not using magic, but he confirmed it was indeed magic. They wondered how a human could compress that much power into a single blow. The instructor realized that if he had taken a direct hit from that innate mana control in their first meeting, he would have died. Furthermore, the brutal way he defeated the trainees was terrifying. Alfred was shocked to see the madam arrive. The trainees were relieved, believing Lancey had come to save them. The madam demanded to know what had happened, and the instructor nervously claimed it was just a simple test. The madam scoffed at the idea of this being a test, then called out to Damien. The madam first ordered the trainees to be gathered and to retreat. She then ordered both Damien and Aster to return to their rooms. She then formally dismissed instructor Ronpet from his post. The instructor was stunned, but Alfred was called forward. Alfred acknowledged his intentions but apologized for going too far, offering to accept any punishment. The madam then asked for a clear account of the spar between Aster and the trainees, asking if Damien had been involved. Alfred confirmed Damien's non-involvement, stating that Aster was simply incredibly good at hitting. Alfred apologized and revealed that Aster had used the mana bullet again, but this time, he had compressed it 3 or 4 times more than before. He concluded that Aster's mana control was excellent and admitted he was quite shaken. Alfred stressed that Aster had single-handedly overpowered 5 trainees with just 1 mana bullet. The madam asked about the successor offer, and Alfred admitted the boy had flatly refused it. She realized she needed to re-evaluate Aster and asked for him to be brought to her. Aster was politely welcomed and offered a seat. He acknowledged her request, but the madam began with another topic. She mentioned Alfred had promised him a gift. The madam confirmed the 1-minute condition of the spar and revealed she had prepared the gift herself. Aster was stunned by what he saw. It was a high-grade elixir, typically reserved only for top recruits in the Blando family's magic corps. The madam assured him he could accept it with peace of mind, stating it was a thank you for helping Damien in the Black-White Zone. Aster questioned if this meant he would be tied to the Blando family or if the elixir was poisoned. She assured him there were absolutely no strings attached, and he thanked her. Aster was pleased with the unexpected gain, but the madam then proposed another matter to him. The madam offered Aster an admission slip. She asked if he would attend the academy with Damien, explaining that Damien's enrollment had been postponed from the previous year. His strong opposition led to the delay, and she never expected him to run away. She explained that Damien liked him, making his presence a crucial factor, confirming that her concern for her son was serious. She worried that forcing Damien into the academy would cause him to run away again, realizing she lacked a clear way to change his mind. Aster considered this a good opportunity since the academy offered valuable connections in a world based on bloodlines and school ties. He found the offer beneficial but felt he was being roped in, deciding to think it over and observe the situation further. She then asked why he had rejected Alfred's offer to be his successor. Well, he claimed his knees were too precious to be worn out as a butler. The madam was utterly speechless by the boy's unbelievable response. I see, so this is a domain of goods. Even though I only absorbed it, I may increased power. He realized his constitution had changed to that of a flame-marked, allowing him to absorb the power without the usual loss or impurity. He decided that enrolling in the academy would make it much easier to find a sponsor, but it felt like he was walking into a trap. He considered going for a quick run to clear his head. He was approached by someone asking if he was the person named Aster. The man's platinum hair suggested he was a branch family relative, and the man was annoyed that the household always made things so bothersome. The man noted his dull ash-gray hair and slightly unpleasant look in his eyes. Aster argued that hair color was dependent on the light and challenged the man's assessment of his eyes. The man quickly apologized for the misunderstanding and turned to leave. The man immediately returned, claiming the misunderstanding had kept him awake all night. He referenced the butler offer, realizing Aster's previous claim about his knees being too precious was a lie. Aster cursed, realizing the man's suspicion about his unlucky eyes was the truth. The man mocked Aster's shamelessness in trying to fool him. He warned Aster to find him at the magic hall later for a lesson in attitude. Aster dismissed the encounter as nothing much, noting the man's challenge worked out well since he was already in a bad mood. He decided to deal with the man later and immediately requested to meet with the head butler. He then requested to meet with the madam. The madam welcomed Aster, asking if he had made up his mind due to the early morning visit. Aster confirmed his decision to enroll in the academy. She expressed her surprise that he had made such a quick decision. She was pleased and offered him a comfortable stay while they made the preparations. Alfred was informed of the boy's agreement. Alfred was ecstatic, praising the boy's spirit and the passion in his eyes. He planned for the boy to become anxious about the huge tuition for the second semester after enjoying the first semester's vacation. He would then appear as the boy's savior, offering sponsorship in the name of Alfred. The madam quietly chastised Alfred for his noisiness, who apologized and excused himself to the kitchen. Astor understood Alfred's pleasure, knowing he had been rejected many times and finally saw a chance for success. He considered the academy proposal a sloppy scheme, but Alfred's confidence stemmed from his own similar experience with the previous head butler. Alfred himself had once been tricked in the same way. Astor pitied the poor man. He arrived at the magic hall, where the branch family member was waiting. "What brings you here, He realized he didn't even know the man's name, but the man greeted him, confirming his perfect timing. The man ushered him inside. The man warned him to watch his head as he entered. He was welcomed by the man, who asked if he was Astor. Astor had a bad feeling about the situation, realizing the man was the older brother of the person he had beaten earlier. He recalled his observations from infiltrating various magic academies as a troubleshooter. His main observation was about the baldness of the wizards, whom he collectively called Penda. The wizard's hair loss was due to constantly pulling it out during study. He had categorized the stages of baldness, starting with denial, then acceptance, and finally a fully shaved head. The final stage involved the impossible task of researching magic for hair regrowth. This guy was different, and Astor was offered an immediate apology. The man apologized for his rude youngest brother, claiming he had spoiled him. Astor asked if he worked at a magic academy, and the man confirmed he was currently the vice head. Astor realized that being appointed vice head at such a young age meant he truly had skills beyond just his bloodline. The man, Henzi, noted that Astor was unusual and different from typical black-white zone vagabonds. Astor forced a laugh, admitting he would have preferred a hostile encounter instead of this kind, smiling greeting. They were clearly incompatible in their personalities. Henzi congratulated him on his recommendation to Zen Ion Academy. Henzi confirmed he was a graduate of the academy and was now trying to form an academic bond. Henzi apologized for getting carried away and proposed they move on to the main point. Astor was curious about the main point, but Henzi wanted to confirm one thing first. Henzi asked if Astor was willing to risk his life for a friend. He explained that this was a matter concerning the fate of the Blando family. Henzi offered him a book in exchange for his life's risk. The book was The Light of Healing Grimoire, the Blando family's core secret technique. The madam was relieved that Damien's academy admission was handled, acknowledging Astor as a good friend to her son. She noted Astor's talent and boldness, which was expected for someone his age. What she appreciated most was his undaunting attitude toward Damien, without a hint of flattery, despite knowing his background. This behavior was the result of his upbringing, which was also the reason he would never truly belong anywhere, like a free bird. She decided she needed to carefully consider the best way to keep such good talent by her side for Damien's sake. Astor wondered what the man's scheme was, offering the Blando family's secret grimoire so easily. The man's clear, pure eyes made him impossible to read. He realized that the man was wearing a mask, to the point where even the man himself didn't know his true self. Henzi warned him not to answer rashly and offered to give his own answer first. Astor refused the offer, now feeling a strange comfort from the man's transparent deception. Henzi warned him that even hearing the request could endanger his life, and he might have to kill him if he refused afterward. Astor defiantly told him to go ahead and kill him, saying he would only die once. He then corrected himself, realizing he would actually die twice. Henzi laughed, conceding that Astor had passed the test. Henzi admitted he needed a trustworthy person outside the Blando family, realizing he had almost revealed his full plan. He hadn't expected much from a black-white zone vagabond, questioning the young master's judgment. However, the madam's willingness to keep such a vagabond near her son made him believe there was something there. The fight between his brother and the guest had provided the perfect excuse for a meeting. Henzi acknowledged that the pretext of a quarrel made his sudden meeting with Aster seem logical. Aster questioned why the vice head of the academy would need such a flimsy pretext. Henzi confirmed that Aster's suspicion was correct, assuring him the Blando family was not facing an internal power struggle. Henzi was actually under surveillance by the Dekulan family. Aster questioned the reason for the Dekulan surveillance, and Henzi chose to be frank, since the boy had shown no fear of death. Henzi admitted he was currently researching the heaven's source art of the Dekulan family, and he had been discovered. Henzi confirmed Aster's knowledge of the heaven's source art, realizing that someone who had lived through the past would naturally have studied it. Henzi claimed that the Dekulan family was reckless, and they would have killed him already for researching a simple countermeasure. However, Henzi confessed that he had discovered something more while researching. He found a way to refine the Dekulan family's foundational art. He believed he could make the heaven's source art an even more perfect technique. Henzi couldn't stop himself and asked if Aster could understand his feelings, causing the troubleshooter to realize the man was completely insane. Henzi claimed he was unable to stop his research and asked if Aster could relate to his passion. Aster realized the timing aligned perfectly with the Dekulan family's previous annihilation of the Blando family, which was triggered by Henzi's research. Paheren had seen the potential in the new heaven's source art from the beginning. The reason Paheren was absurdly strong was because of this art. Henzi called out to Aster. Henzi asked if he regretted anything, then urged him to reveal the reason for his visit. Henzi revealed he hadn't reported his research to the family and suspected a spy was operating within Blando. Aster asked if the leak was related to the acquisition route rather than a person. Henzi confirmed that he had intentionally leaked part of the security formula as a countermeasure once he realized he was being tracked. Aster questioned why he didn't just side with Dekulan, but Henzi claimed to have personal interests. Henzi needed Aster to handle this secretly since he wasn't directly tied to the family. Henzi revealed the research was a joint project, and the part he was in charge of was failing, but he promised Aster proper protection. Henzi needed Aster to deliver a thesis to Professor Farron at Zenion Academy. In return, he would give Aster the light of healing technique. Aster agreed to the light of healing technique but also demanded the completed new heaven's source art later, as a sign of true comradeship. Henzi called him shameless and demanded a clear yes or no answer for the deal. Henzi agreed to give him the completed new heaven's source art, though he knew it was useless to Aster for now. Henzi set a condition: Aster must help him with the thesis until it was complete, as a responsibility to their new partnership. Aster agreed to help with the thesis-related tasks. Henzi realized he was not only shameless but also incredibly shrewd. Aster asked if Professor Farron was trustworthy, and Henzi revealed their history as academic rivals, though he believed himself to be superior. Aster realized the world was indeed ending if the academy had another lunatic like Henzi. He wondered why Henzi had packed so much into the subspace pouch. The pouch contained a letter addressed to his dear friend Aster. Aster scoffed at the term dear, realizing the pouch contained essential grimoires and a suggested learning order for his future mastery. The letter was signed by Henzi von Blando, confirming the man was a genius and a meticulous planner. Good. List of book sponsors. Henzi von Blando. Excluding the two most valuable books, he had received 132 volumes, and decided to discuss the possibility of displaying the light of healing in the Tower of Heaven with Damien later. The 132 books were not a random assortment but formed a single, complete category. This curriculum would allow anyone to build their foundation in magic, becoming the very identity of the tower. The tower would be a place that granted learning to all who sought it. This was an incredibly unexpected harvest. Henzi admitted he had initially planned to simply use Aster to deliver the thesis and discard him, but found him to be an interesting guy. He then recalled the threat to kill him if he refused the offer. He was surprised the boy had been willing to die, realizing it was a test, but he had no logical reason not to kill him. He realized that Aster was not like the other vagrants, he genuinely did not care if he died. Henzi found him fascinating, concluding that despite his hidden nature, he had found a comrade who looked in the same direction and even desired the fruits of his work. He questioned, however, if the boy truly didn't know how to read. The servant informed Lord Aster it was time to depart. He was informed there would be simple paperwork upon arriving at the academy. Both the young lord and Lord Aster were exempt from the entrance exam. The servant confirmed that he was now a proper academy student. The new title and role suited him. Aster thanked the servant, noting the exam exemption was typical of special admission for prestigious families. Damien urged his friend to hurry up. Damien was told to take care of himself. Henzi wished him well and hoped he would achieve the results he wanted. Aster confirmed that achieving his desired results was the plan at Zenion, the greatest academy on the eastern continent, where countless sponsors awaited him. He intended to seize them all. He warned his classmates that he was coming. "I'm coming." He acknowledged Henzi's brilliance, realizing that basic magic principles were simple, but their interpretations were endless. He used the example of water, which could be either the water of life or the water of disaster, showing how noble families develop different perspectives from the same core principles. He realized that Henzi's curriculum connected the different families' heavens plan. Damien excitedly pointed out that they had arrived. He observed the impressive sight of Zenion Academy. The carriage ride was over, as the dean's teaching required all students to walk to the entrance ceremony, regardless of status. The servant bid them farewell, wishing them a successful entrance ceremony. Damien urged his friend to hurry, claiming that Lancey had warned them they might not get any seats. Aster was shocked by the ludicrous claim, realizing Lancey had deliberately lied to ensure they would walk to the ceremony. He decided to let it slide, acknowledging that Lancey was blunt but not shameless. He noted the large crowd of people. Damien insisted that Lancey was right about the seat shortage, but Aster denied it. He checked their assigned seating, Class M3, seats 11 and 12. Damien urged him to just sit down anywhere before all the seats were taken. Aster was confused by Damien's excitement, considering his previous reluctance to attend the academy. Damien suddenly cried out. Aster asked what was wrong. Damien confirmed he was fine and apologized for not watching where he was going. Aster noted that the person Damien had bumped into was drooling and appeared to be a scion of a noble family. Damien apologized and offered to wipe the man's shoes, making them shinier, causing Aster to realize a fight was inevitable. The man demanded Damien to get off him, calling him a half-wit. Aster intervened, suggesting the fellow student was making a mistake. He proposed they simply stop the confrontation now. The man demanded his identity, and Damien declared him to be his friend. The man called him a good friend for being willing to take a beating for the other, but promised he would regret it. Aster sighed, realizing that getting along with his fellow students on the first day was too much to ask. He decided to accept the challenge, confirming the man didn't want to talk things out. The crowd gathered, wondering who was fighting, identifying the larger student as a Dulpane family bloodline. The onlookers debated who would win, favoring the Dolan guy due to his family's reputation. Aster expressed his disgust with the crowd's reaction. He questioned why they weren't stopping the fight before it escalated. He then instructed them to spread out and make some room for the combatants, as the onlookers realized Aster was a mage. He then instructed them to put up a force field around the fighters. The crowd cheered, betting their meal tickets on the outcome. The larger student introduced himself as Hickster, the proud second son of the Dolampi family. Aster confirmed he had no distinguished bloodline and told the man to think of him as one of the masses. Hickster conceded that since Astor was a mage, the narrow stage was a disadvantage and graciously offered him the first move. Astor found the man to be a complete riot. He noted that the one who claimed he didn't want to talk now had the longest tongue, asking if he was scared. Hickster cursed at the insult. Astor then added one more detail. He corrected Hickster that there were two opponents, not one. Hickster was completely outraged by the audacity of a mere mage. How dare dash! A mere mage. Astor acknowledged that the first punch was not bad. Damien cried out a warning. Hickster warned him not to look down on him. Astor was impressed with the hit, confirming the direct impact, but wondered why it felt so light. The blow's lack of force puzzled him. Astor noticed a small puff of dust. He realized that Damien was continuously using healing magic on him, so he would need to end the fight with a single, massive blow. He prepared a technique he had created with his comrades in his past life. The technique drew energy from the collision of mana particles, a pure, non-magical art. It was a pure technique that simply utilized the unique properties of mana. Hickster gasped, completely shocked by the unexpected attack. He questioned what this strange power was. The crowd cheered for the victor. The crowd's reaction was full of cheers and shock, wondering if Astor was truly a mage. The crowd celebrated the underdog's win, and Damien cheered for their victory. Astor then warned the now unconscious Hickster to stop acting childishly. A teacher found the fight vulgar for a student of magic. The teacher commanded the students to move and demanded to know who had started the brawl. The teacher threatened to take them all in, causing Astor to realize he was in trouble. He quickly reminded himself that he was a troubleshooter. He knew there were plenty of ways to escape, and their fun would not be easily forgotten. Damien and Astor confessed that they were the ones who started the fight. Astor called out to Damien, trying to steady his nerves. She noted his honest confession and decided to overlook the incident since no real harm was done. She warned him that she'd be watching his behavior closely from now on. He sighed in relief, grateful the ceremony hadn't begun yet. Students whispered in awe, shocked that someone with a magic student's build defeated a martial arts trainee. He noticed the crowd staring, realizing they'd unintentionally become the center of attention. Spotting their friends, they hurried over, grateful the seats had been saved for them. The headmaster began the ceremony, continuing the academy's long-held traditions. His speech dragged on, yet he remained impressively steady despite the lengthy address. Someone clicked their tongue, unimpressed by the speaker. A staff member alerted the headmaster to an urgent matter, causing him mild confusion. He apologized to the students, explaining he had to attend to something pressing. He wrapped up his words and allowed the ceremony to proceed without him. The crowd snapped to attention as the announcement echoed through the hall. Zyra stepped forward, taking charge of the ceremony in the headmaster's absence. He called for the Magic Division's representative, Dahlia, while whispers questioned her family situation. Someone cautioned others to think before speaking, reminding them of her influential lineage. Dahlia was introduced as a member of a prestigious magic family, second only to the East's strongest. She had grown up expected to represent her house, once aiding him greatly after his retirement. Yet, their bond had been more of mischievous rivalry than mentorship, though he was glad she'd joined this year. Paula, the martial arts representative, stepped forward with quiet resolve. Observers guessed he wasn't noble-born, sparking murmurs about the academy's great houses. The professors were introduced one by one as the next guides of the 172nd class. He sensed one professor's gaze on him, though he didn't pay it much mind. His friend yelped, realizing Professor Farron's turn was approaching. Farron introduced himself as the instructor for basic magical principles. The student compared him to Henzi, noting the surprising difference in demeanor. With introductions complete, the students were directed toward their assigned dormitories. His friend nudged him awake, joking that they'd been expelled for dozing off. He chuckled, admitting he didn't expect such teasing to startle him so badly. They reached the top-floor dorms, impressed by the academy's scale. He examined the supplies, noting how even the smallest items revealed the academy's care. He wondered who his roommate would be. His new roommate looked displeased, prompting him to aim for a quiet coexistence. The roommate insisted on minimal interaction and asked for his acknowledgement. He reiterated the boundaries clearly, making sure nothing would disrupt their peace. He confirmed the arrangement with a simple nod. The roommate grew irritated at his silence, curious about the martial artist's skill. When he moved suddenly, the roommate was impressed, noting the symbolic lamp he carried. His friend called out for him to hurry, assuming he had already left. He accepted the rules, asking only that past mistakes remain unspoken. His friend eagerly asked about his roommate, but he had no answers yet. His friend rambled excitedly, urging him to explore the academy before the day ended. He realized she wanted him to learn the layout to avoid getting lost later. He agreed, his senses faintly picking up something familiar he needed to confirm. He recognized the lingering trace of a troubleshooter from the Dekulan line. Curious, he planned to see how many such traces existed as they continued exploring. He marveled at the lake, admitting he'd never seen anything like it at home. Tiring from guiding his excitable companion, he realized why they had been paired together. He joked that building a lake was simple, just a hole filled with water. He eagerly planned to request an even larger, grander version of the one they admired. He pondered a fitting name for the lake and settled on one born from pure effort, feeling proud of the choice. He admired a nearby statue and urged that another be crafted for him as a second monument to their hard work. A sudden chill ran through him, prompting the group to wrap up their tour and head out together. He assessed the number of troubleshooters, estimating around 10, and began mapping their central point of activity. His suspicions narrowed toward the second magic hall, the residence of Professor Fawns, confirming his earlier intuition. He realized Dekoli must have noticed Hayes wasn't alone, especially with a suspicious professor connected to him. Someone acknowledged his arrival with quiet expectation. He learned the others had gone ahead and that a new directive required gathering at the sub-target's location. News came that the main target had left traces and would transfer the objective to the sub-target at midnight. He concluded that since Henzi had acted, the sub-target they monitored, Professor Farnun, was now involved. He worried about facing the elite professors, knowing only top-ranked operatives could match their strength. Their leaders refused to send the strongest reinforcements, leaving the team frustrated yet resigned. Relief came when they heard Callahan, the fire demon, would join their mission. They recalled the fierce reputation of the Crimson Jade, a vice-admiral whose cold resolve served the mission alone. He understood the unspoken order: their lives were expendable if necessary to complete the mission. Accepting the harsh reality, he urged the group to regroup quickly to increase their chances of survival. He reflected on the midnight plan and the mention of Callahan joining the operation. He remembered Callahan as a formidable man even during his own active years, loyal through a devastating clan war. Callahan had stayed with his collapsing family, proving unwavering devotion. Though dangerous now, Callahan's true prime came after the war, leaving an indelible mark among battle mages. He vowed to capture him, recognizing Callahan's secret arts and his own growing renown across the continent. He realized the troublemaker tailing them had withdrawn, sensing they had discovered an unexpected advantage. He noted the contradiction: the thesis was with him, yet others claimed it was being delivered to a professor. He was certain his thesis wasn't fake, meaning the target referred to something else entirely. He concluded that the item being delivered was a forged thesis. Enraged, he saw the enemy's move as an invasion of his territory and wondered what bold plan they were pursuing. The pieces clicked together in his mind. He recognized mercenaries at work and called out to Paula. He criticized the flawed disguise technique, reminding them of the basics they had neglected. He watched in silence, tension hanging in the air. He lamented that all their careful effort to bypass surveillance had ended in such an anticlimactic capture. He refused to believe a cunning man like Henny would be caught so easily and suspected a deeper scheme. He greeted Professor Perrin with forced politeness. Callahan introduced himself, doubting the reclusive professor had ever heard of his name. Another figure laughed, recognizing the newcomer as a mercenary, while the professor claimed no familiarity. The professor dismissed their chatter, urging them to speak plainly as irritation grew. Callahan reveled in the rare disrespect and declared that one of them was marked for death. He decided the professor would be left maimed, sparing only an eye and an arm. The professor allowed him to act freely, declaring that from now on he would be treated as a mercenary, not a student. He noted the absence of alarms and deduced that advanced dueling arts were suppressing all sound. He braced himself, realizing he had no choice but to rely on the rookie mercenary. He recognized the file as coming from Blando and sensed the carrier had no intention of surrendering it peacefully. He wondered whether they should turn the situation into a test of strength. He sensed the true confrontation finally beginning. He acknowledged how long it had been since a moment like this. He prepared himself not as Aster, but as troubleshooter number 1. He readied his stance, signaling the start of the battle. He offered a quiet plea to the moon, hoping to serve once more as a steadfast troubleshooter. He admitted to himself that righteousness had never truly been his strength. He noticed Nihanda gripping the captive and questioned the mercenary's intentions. He cursed, realizing the charm from the captain wasn't protective at all, and felt lucky to have survived. He pushed forward, demanding the path be cleared. He acknowledged the gesture, deciding the other could be trusted a bit more. He spotted ether coating the blade, wondering if the enchantment could truly be stopped. He braced himself, ready to face however many came his way. He accepted that failure now meant death, standing firm as both magician and guarder. He recognized the strength of their combined roles. With the guardian defeated, he sensed he was being dragged deeper into the chaos. Faced with no other option, he prepared to make a risky gamble. He pushed his power to the limit, battling for control, testing how much the other entity could withstand. He realized the challenge was a struggle for dominance and accepted the contest without hesitation. He unleashed a raw, guttural cry as the clash intensified. He muttered in frustration as the pressure mounted. He saw that every opponent fought like a monster and knew recklessly charging in would be suicide against the knight's power. He watched the brutality unfold, barely able to stomach it. He urged them to hold position, knowing a sudden charge would be fatal, and checked how many troubleshooters remained. He sensed an ambush coming, startled by the danger. He confirmed the sudden strike had begun. He prepared for a dramatic arrival, ready to seize the moment. He reacted in disbelief at the sudden turn. He called out Callahan's name as the tension spiked. He warned that this battlefield would serve as the enemy's grave. He choked out a curse as the man attacked without mercy. He groaned in pain as the blow landed. He wondered where such a fearsome man had appeared from. He was shaken by the flawless, efficient movement and perfectly optimized magic, finding himself unexpectedly impressed. He admitted he had no idea who the stranger was. He charged forward with intent to kill. He declared his resolve to end the stranger's life. He questioned whether his strike landed, noting the others fell quickly while this took more effort, forcing him to adjust mid-motion. He exhaled sharply, surprised by his own excitement, and planned to regroup to take down Professor Fardin. He taunted, unimpressed by the enemy's effort. He revealed that beneath Callahan's wild exterior lay a cold, calculating mind, knowing he planned to sacrifice him with the troubleshooters. He warned that such ruthless thinking had led to this downfall. He noted the overwhelming speed. He acknowledged Callahan's skill as expected. He admitted his mana reserves were still lacking. He searched the area, confirming combat mages kept their secret techniques close at hand. He examined the subspace pocket, recognizing the owner-bound spell and planning to dispel it later. He remarked on the professor's late arrival. He explained he had been delayed dealing with rats and questioned whether the other was one as well. He sighed at the madness surrounding him and asked what the other thought about him killing one of Dekulan's men. He deduced that being called a madman meant the newcomer was Henzi's agent and clarified his own stance. He questioned who the mercenary truly was and whether the thesis had been split in two. He admitted he hadn't heard details but reasoned the mercenary was likely a fake, bait set by Henzi to expose the rats and shake Dekulan's influence. He noted that despite the blackout spell, the battle scale should have drawn Imperial Knights long ago, making their absence suspicious. He suspected the Dekulan family had pulled strings with the Imperial Knights, questioned whether this truly was the messenger, and reluctantly accepted the thesis. He probed whether the other really knew the contents, leaving him thoughtful at the answer he received. He admitted he enjoyed a fight but would not risk losing a reliable ally, so he accepted the thesis to preserve their alliance. He asked what they wanted while noting Hens trusted those whose desires aligned with his, and warned they must build trust step by step. He paused, surprised by the simple request for a book. The other pledged to build a tall public tower filled with books and asked for a volume revealing the speaker's secret of magic. They agreed it might be fun to write such a book and debated how to stay in contact and arranged the next delivery. They produced a linked communication crystal, a failsafe. Breaking one would signal the other and call for help. He vowed not to come searching and delivered a curt, private admission that he disliked men. He felt an inexplicable stirring within him, something he could not yet name. Not long after, the Empire's Imperial Knights arrived and secured the scene with swift authority. The Knights evacuated the students as a precaution, and the narrator used the chaos to blend in with the crowd. A friend reappeared, apologizing for the delay and mentioning the mounting evidence. The reunion felt hurried and chaotic. He questioned the plan's purpose, recalling the last bloody battle and feeling the memory linger in his bones, grateful for the support offered. He described an elemental technique that left fortresses untouched and demanded to know the activation conditions. Determined to investigate, he planned to search Laptir, the Academy's largest library, for any clue. A newcomer introduced themselves as Chinbi and greeted Aster with a friendly smile. Chinbi praised Aster's fighting skill and worried aloud that witnessing him fight might expose his identity. The newcomer repeated their admiration, increasing the risk that Aster's true self might be noticed. The teacher recalled Aster's first-day brawl, likening his movements to a blade's precision and impressed by his form. He explained their limited ether explained current weaknesses, but that those limitations would change with time. He admitted he simply wanted company, confessing the loneliness of not having close friends and the difficulty of fitting in. Though the Academy promised equal treatment, coming from a poor family left him feeling like an outsider among students. He shrugged outwardly, relieved yet unsettled at the thought of facing danger alone. He marveled that this ordinary exchange felt unexpectedly normal. He confessed he had forgotten what it felt like to be normal. Someone yawned, declared they were sleepy, and offered a sleepy greeting to Aster and Damien. Despite yesterday's commotion, the school resumed. Students complained of tiredness while quietly speculating about Chen's background. They praised a decent friend and mentioned that their homeroom teacher would be Professor Zyra. The class murmured about Zyra's reputation and recognized her as she arrived to take her place. Professor Zyra greeted the class, dismissed yesterday's fuss as nothing, and urged them to focus on their studies. Before class began, she announced a mana measurement that would assess both quantity and quality, then asked for names. Arzan answered. The teacher noted no single correct answer but argued that with sufficient mana, quality often mattered more. The teacher explained that mana quality affected accuracy, stability, and power, and that sheer quantity was not everything. The teacher asked Arzan his house. He admitted he was affiliated with the Marquis of Paraim. The teacher nodded, murmuring that his background explained his abilities. She called for anyone else who wished to answer. A shy student named Apel stammered that in large battles raw mana quantity could prove decisive. The teacher conceded both points. Depending on context, either mana quality or quantity could be more important. A student without a house suggested casting speed mattered, adding to the fragmented answers and confusion. Another muttered that desperation could be a factor, and the repeated questions thickened the room's tension. The teacher praised their responses, saying each answer came close despite there being no single right reply. She urged them to reflect on whether their answers sprang from their own thoughts or from trying to please her. She declared that a mage must never lose their subjectivity and must always carry out their own will. She commanded them to become true mages, to internalize that mindset going forward. He realized his suspicion had been correct and admired the clever, twisted way events had unfolded. She instructed each student to come forward for a mana test. Arzan responded and stepped up. Praising Arzan as class representative, she asked him to record his classmates' names. He accepted the task nervously. Observers noted this was how she trained them, some oddly envious yet unsure what exactly provoked that feeling. An assistant professor stepped forward to assist with the class. The crowd marveled at the rare device, many seeing a mana measurer in person for the first time. The instructor announced it was time for each student to discover their mana strength. Some whispered that a prodigy might be hiding among them. She guided Arzan to place his hand on the crystal and release his mana. The device lit up, and she pointed to the central indicator as the key measure. It revealed his refinement level as 4, a score notably above last year's average. Grateful, Arzan moved on to test his capacity by channeling more mana. His capacity measured at level 17, slightly above the previous year's intake. She praised Arzan's steady effort reflected in both quality and quantity of his mana. Arzan felt proud, while others quietly hoped their own results would shine. The professor excused herself, leaving the assistant to continue the tests as students refocused on training. Aster and his friend stepped up next, stunned as the device reacted intensely. His refinement level reached 6, and his mana capacity hit 20, drawing envious murmurs. Another student stepped forward and introduced himself as Furion de Denai. Observers noted his prestigious lineage, though some found his introduction unnecessarily dramatic. His results impressed, though his capacity lagged slightly behind his refined mana. Nearby students complained about the noise until curiosity pulled them into the commotion. One of them suddenly rushed over, eager to join, despite drawing unwanted attention. Whispers spread as students recognized noble airs among the group and wondered about the unfamiliar boy leading them. One of them grumbled about the fame he'd earned from past fights as the examiner invited him to measure his mana. He confirmed he only needed to channel his mana into the device. The reading shocked everyone as the numbers skyrocketed beyond expectation. They muttered in disbelief at the result: refinement level 9 and capacity level 67. To ordinary people, this was the kind of brilliance that defied common sense. The observer admitted Damien's genius but hadn't expected his abilities to be this overwhelming. A resolve formed to help Damien reach the heights he once neglected in another life. That determination aimed to raise him high enough to trouble their rivals forever. The examiner praised Damien's results but reminded him that mana alone didn't define a mage. Someone asked if his friend had tested yet and urged him to try. He noted how curious everyone must be about his score and decided to take the test. Wanting to avoid complications, he planned to aim for an average result while stating his name. He prepared to release a modest amount of mana, confused by the device's low baseline, but the reading climbed faster than he expected. The device suddenly reported an overflow, baffling the room. The examiner claimed it was likely an error and suggested another attempt. His friends insisted the reading felt accurate despite the protests. The device was reset, and he tried again. This time the reading settled properly, and he claimed he had balanced his mana better. Someone muttered disbelief, prompting Damien to question where he learned such language. Damien repeated the new word proudly, leaving his friend regretting ever saying it. The group moved toward the first magic hall. Elsewhere, discussions continued about repairs and unrelated disputes involving Professor Farron. Yorby entered with the collected data from the day's mana tests. The professor reviewed the results, noting an unusually strong group this semester. His attention fixed on Astor's file, which showed a retest due to the initial error. The error code revealed Astor had surpassed the device's preset limits. Their bickering continued as they argued over who was allowed to use certain words. One friend asked if the result was acceptable, and they agreed it was. He prepared another mana construct, adjusting it to look more dynamic and lifelike. Onlookers were astonished as he toyed with the test, realizing how far his skill surpassed theirs. He understood the sentiment, but reminded him that reality had to be accepted before moving forward, though the sudden word friend made him pause. He reflected on the day, feeling certain he'd chosen the right academy. The other replied warmly, pleased by his satisfaction. He slowly retrieved the subspace pouch, noting that although it was locked, anyone versed in magic could bypass the mana pattern seal. With proper tools he could have opened it in a week, but doing it secretly had taken a month, all while dissolving the Blando family's elixir with his own mana. He added that the academy had taught him much more, and now he could finally finish unlocking it, inviting the other to take a look. Inside, he discovered a potion. He dismissed it immediately, recognizing it as a protection artifact he couldn't use. Another item caught his attention. Its power was decent, and after searching, he finally found it among the herbs. It was red fire, a lesser counterpart to Fedrin's blue flame, yet still a dark spell capable of burning through barriers. Mastery was required for it to work, and knowing he couldn't learn it instantly, he planned to take his time, then remembered what day it was. It was the start of the midterm performance evaluations. Students buzzed with excitement as crowds gathered from Class M1 all the way to theirs. They whispered about a rumor involving a canyon challenge, overheard from staff discussing maintenance during the testing period. He considered the exam types: a maze-like sewer trial requiring navigation through twisting pipes, or the canyon breakthrough, a race to the end, and the simulator featuring battles against foes, yet the canyon was today's focus. He insisted the event didn't matter as long as he stayed safe, though Chinbi clearly seemed troubled about the chaotic environment ahead. Silence fell as greetings signaled the professor's arrival. Professor Foreign introduced himself as the supervisor, receiving a weary comment about his worsening dark circles. He reminded them that today marked the midterm performance evaluation, and the selected event was revealed. The exam would be the trial of the ordeal. One student panicked, realizing their entire plan was ruined, earning a scoff and a yelp. The professor instructed them to line up by class and prepare for the challenge. He explained that the test required navigating sewer-like pipes until reaching the final gate, with all paths eventually converging. Someone sighed in relief, thinking it sounded simple, but learned it would otherwise be little more than a meaningless race. A golem appeared, shocking the students who didn't expect such a machine in the exam. Someone warned them not to panic, explaining that the golem was weakened and slow, manageable even for their level. Yet in tight spaces they could be caught easily, making it a difficult challenge for mages who lacked physical adaptability. While some lacked grit, he noted that a few students still showed notable potential. One student carried fierce determination, though the instructor dismissed considering them further. The professor called for order. Golems, he explained, would act as path guardians, and students could choose to fight or evade them, each wearing a protective test bracelet. If the bracelet's barrier broke, the student would be eliminated, and the golems would stop attacking them. Since their enthusiasm felt lacking, he challenged them to impress him, whether through speed or strength. Outstanding performance, he promised, would earn a personal reward worth their effort, a prize the narrator desperately wanted. He thought of Lapitzer, the continent's largest library, divided into 3 levels, yet he was only allowed into the lowest one. When searching for clues about the stigma, he had found nothing there, and the upper levels required noble status or 3 professor recommendations. That was why he needed the reward, to safeguard the people around him, and he had memorized every route, ready to make this exam simple. The briefing ended, and they were told to prepare, prompting students to request items like explosives and fire tokens in chaotic fashion. Others shouted for golem controllers and shortcuts, making the scene resemble unruly street brawlers rather than trained mages. One student urgently requested vine seeds, surprising the assistant until reminded of Damien's plant-related skills. He admitted he lacked an attribute but could still use plant magic, earning a hesitant approval. Even Dana, usually unserious, was preparing earnestly, and they wondered whether Chun-Li would finally break out of her timid nature. The professor began assigning starting points, telling everyone to check their names and move accordingly. He found himself at starting point 3, bidding farewell to friends as they prepared to face the test. His group consisted of 6 unfamiliar faces, reminding him of his old missions with mismatched teams, leaving him feeling awkward. Someone questioned if he was Aster, eyeing him with disdain and doubting he belonged to their class. The student introduced himself as Dibi, wanting to offer a deal. He wanted to buy the bracelets of those who failed. He offered 30 gold per bracelet, 90 in total if the narrator handled the other 3, a sum equal to a commoner family's monthly income. Dibi claimed it was a good offer even for someone from the black-white zone, warning that relying on the young master wouldn't last forever, and though harsh, he wasn't completely wrong. He warned them to keep things quiet, insisting his constructs had purpose and demanding a steep price despite the numbers not adding up. He pointed out their miscalculation, reminding them there were 6 people in total. He asked why they ignored their own shares, adjusting the total to match the raised rate. He accused them of shady math and begrudgingly increased the fee again. He scoffed, thinking the lowborn boy was trying to profit without understanding his own downfall. With no enforcers left, he ended the negotiation, insisting they still owed compensation before leaving. He argued that even if cargo was removed, passenger fees still needed to be paid. He demanded 120 gold, insulting them for trying to cheat him. One of them raged, boasting about noble lineage and threatening violence. Another told him to stop embarrassing himself and to just pay the demanded amount. Hearing talk of noble dealings, he raised the price further, claiming the rate doubled for prestigious customers. The man accepted the amount, vowing to make him regret charging that much. The examiner explained the rules. Breaking the shield meant elimination through mana-triggered force fields. Once the shield shattered, the bracelet would stay on the wielder. Anyone with a broken shield would be teleported out to avoid serious injury. The test began. The system activated, displaying internal footage and preparing to score their performance. Dahlia and Damien started from the same position as the trial began. The screen suddenly went dark, causing panic despite earlier inspections of the magic devices. The staff stammered as the merchant added another fee to the young master's tab. He felt their stares drilling into him as he addressed his irritated customers. Short on time, he urged everyone to proceed quickly. His opponents sneered, eager to see how long Damien's confidence would last. Damien noted that a magical hit meant immediate elimination. His plan was simple: dodge, strike, and attack before the detector registered impact. The hit landed cleanly, avoiding elimination. He realized that fighting this way was strangely satisfying despite its inefficiency. He celebrated the small victory. Someone mocked the young master for hiring so many helpers so quickly. He added a fee for arrogance and warned that future penalties would be in silver. One of them cursed him, promising revenge. He dismissed their threats with annoyance before another scream echoed. He counted the hits and deducted gold, insisting he was clearly the victim. He now had 6 bracelets and wondered what to do next. He needed 3 recommendations, meaning he still required 2 more impressive feats. He considered destroying the entire hall's support pillars to stand out. He quickly rejected the idea to avoid angering the entire eastern continent. He decided to stop overthinking and simply push forward with action. He wondered how the others were faring, shocked by a tactic he thought impossible. Panic spread as they begged the young master to help them survive. They pleaded desperately to be allowed through. Someone shouted in disbelief as vines disrupted their spellcasting. A choked cry escaped one of the participants. Damien called for calm, insisting he only wanted to pass the test. They ignored him, demanding his bracelet while arguing among themselves. Distrust flared as they accused one another of betrayal before launching another attack. Damien reminded himself not to get greedy, passing alone was enough. He checked his bracelet, confused at how he had been eliminated without noticing. He braced himself, expecting to be teleported at any moment. When nothing happened, a voice echoed, addressing the academy and hinting at an ominous presence. He warned that anyone interfering already knew the consequences, declaring a grim message: there would be a price for angering the Great One. She felt a chill crawl up her spine as the eerie declaration echoed through the room. He announced the students' doom as systems collapsed: no escape, no surveillance, only despair. Chaos erupted as he shouted in rage, then ordered others to fetch the professors immediately, demanding Felina first. Panic spread as they scrambled to summon the faculty, cursing the attackers who dared disrupt everything. He swore under his breath, overwhelmed by the unfolding disaster. He questioned the absurdity of the situation, unable to comprehend the madness. 10 minutes after their sinister thought took form, the abominable being awakened, its presence only growing worse. He realized the rushing golems meant the system had been tampered with. Someone had emptied the critical gloves from storage. He wondered who the enemy was this time, claiming he had survived all foes except one of divine caliber, and vowed to crush anyone in his way. Regret filled him as he lamented the situation, forcing himself to confront the possibility of death, then steeling himself to think. He let out a confused grunt, startled by what he sensed. He struggled to make sense of the fragmented sound before him. A terrified scream burst from someone nearby. She followed a presence only to find it wasn't Damien, realizing the situation could turn catastrophic. With failing stamina, she initiated Plan B and asked for the bracelet. He explained the golem's unusual pursuit, revealing the bracelets were linked to the system and acting like alarms. He urged Aster to run, saying he was already targeted and would hold them off while she escaped, reminding her she had a family to return to. Memories surfaced, his parents urging him to focus on magic, and his little sibling begging him to teach them someday. Desperation fueled him as he screamed for survival, insisting they had to reunite again. He forced himself to live for those who supported him, for his parents, who sacrificed for him, and his sister, who took pride in him. He declared that he had to reclaim everything meant for his family. They had always called him their pride and joy. He questioned whether someone like him, timid and unsure, was worthy of that title. He wondered if abandoning a friend made him unworthy of anyone's pride. He resolved to stop letting guilt chain him, vowing to never surrender despite how small he felt. He prepared to unleash the greatest magic he knew, the spell left to him by the master who awakened his potential. He begged with every ounce of will for the spell to activate. His master once asked what he thought of the spell's name, insisting he look closely at its power. The magic manifested like a majestic spear of earth, its force piercing through everything. He recalled being taught to shape not just the stone's form, but its very essence. He knew altering both essence and form was a formidable challenge. He stared in awe at what was unfolding before him. This level of magic was something Chinbi should not have been able to wield. Chinbi remembered how his master long ago gave him this spell, Spear of the Earth, despite finding its name a bit dramatic. His companion argued the name wasn't that grand, yet not entirely modest either. His master taught him that the spell's worth depended on its caster, their actions defined its greatness. Aster scolded him for acting like he was dying, insisting he'd survive, then pondered what to do with the unconscious body, sensing the potion's effects. He focused his senses and detected a presence in the distance. Aster instructed Chinbi to head straight, turn right at the fork, and he'd find other students. Chinbi asked where he himself would go. Aster sensed mana flowing strangely toward the control room, familiar, yet not of Dekulan origin. He said he had something he needed to confirm and headed off to uncover the truth.